Hi, I'm Peter, and this is Go Verb and Noun. Okay, so this morning, we are doing a question and answer section. I asked you guys to send me any questions you had, and then I also went through all of my videos and found any questions that I could in the comment sections, and I pulled them out, and now it's time for me to answer them. You guys get to have me first thing in the morning, after my cup of coffee, and a excellent night of thinking about what I'm going to say. So, here we go. Things should go a little bit faster and smoother. I guess we're going to find out. Loosen up. The first question that I have here is from Millie Grace Stevens from Tumblr. She asks, first, if you had the budget and access to any experts you want for YouTube show, what genre or subject education series would you make? Second, whether it be YouTube or a more traditional video education, who would you most love to interview? Okay, excellent questions. I think if budget was no problem, if money was not an issue, I think what I would most love to do, if I were making a video series, is I would like to do something for young kids, like kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. There has been a lot of research in both education and just physical development of humans, where they've found that the earlier you address problems, whether it's through nutrition or education, the less of an impact those problems are going to have on a person as they develop, which makes sense when you think about it in terms of physiology. So for example, let's say you have kids and they are malnourished, they don't get the proper nutrients that they need. As they grow up and become adults, these nutrition deficiencies are going to affect how they develop, make it harder for them to do certain jobs, things like that. It can affect their hearing or vision or mental development. And so education is the same way. There is a huge body of research, or at least some body of research, that has shown that the older you get, the harder it is to learn languages. That's not to say that as you get older you can't learn languages, it just gets harder. And I think it's the same for learning a lot of things. So yeah, I would love, if money was not an issue, to just make an early childhood development educational series. Basically Sesame Street is what I'm getting at. I would love to work for Sesame Street and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and PBS and all them. Which actually ties into the second part of the question that says, whether it be YouTube or more traditional video education, who would I most love to interview? I would say probably the folks at the Corporation for Public Broadcasting or the folks at the Fred Rogers Company, because they do early childhood development stuff, and I think that stuff is awesome. Disclaimer, 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 I love working with kids. And here's a fun fact about me. I used to do story time at one of my early jobs before I joined the Navy, where I would just sit down and read to a bunch of kids, and it was the best thing, because you watch kids get excited about stuff. That is just the coolest thing. I mean, it's really cool to see anybody at any age get excited about something when they're learning, but there's something different when it comes to kids, and I just think it's the coolest thing. So, there you go. And then I think she also asked, how did I personally find YouTube as a medium, since I asked other people this? I love it. I think one of the things that makes YouTube separate from other mediums, and television separate from other mediums, like radio and print and stuff like that, but more YouTube than television, is this thing that you and I have going on right now. Right now, you are watching me from my bedroom. I'm in my bedroom, first thing in the morning, you see my face, you see how I am in real life. And I think YouTube provides a special venue for that you don't get with high production television or video or anything like that. And I think this stems from vlogs. And my friend Anthony D'Angelo, who I'm going to put a link to his channel on this wonderful wine bottle with a rainbow koozie, he talks a lot about it's not metasocial, but parasocial, maybe it is, where you have interactions between two people, but it's almost one-sided. But I think that one-sidedness, it does allow for a certain degree of intimacy. I know, for me, I'm really sociable. I can be like this in person or on video. But for a lot of people, it's really hard to be like this, to be your authentic self, when you are in front of people. And so vlogs have kind of made it where, a person has their own privacy, has their own security, where they can be themselves without fear of being judged. Not counting, mind you, the fact that YouTube comments are a terrible place. But besides that, I think YouTube is excellent. I think it's a great medium for learning, because you can first, if you want to, you can first build these personal connections, and then you can use these personal connections to enhance a person's ability to learn. Derek Mueller from Veritasium, he actually talked about, this in this video, this will revolutionize education, link right here. He talks about all of these crazy ideas in education that have been this is going to make things great, video, or the internet, or iPads, or whatever. But the truth is, what makes education effective is having teachers, like having effective teachers who know how to help kids learn, who facilitate learning. That is huge, and I agree with that, and that's one of the reasons that I think YouTube is great, because you do have that element of social interaction, and you do have that element of, people look at somebody like Hank Green, and they see him and they think, I respect this guy, I relate to this guy, I'm going to be more in tune to what he has to say. So, there you go. Next question, from Kierfnen from Hank's video asks, since a good chunk of this video is on funding, how is Go Verb Noun possible? I covered this in my intro video, but I'll go over it again. It's almost all self-funded. At the time, when I did my introduction video, I talked about how, I was in the Navy, and while I was in the Navy, I had expendable income. And so I didn't spend it. Instead, I put it in savings, and then I used that savings to live for the past year, going and researching education stuff, researching technology, interviewing people, traveling around the world. It was great. I highly recommend saving money to everyone who wants to do similar things like that. But there is also my Patreon page. Shameless plug right here. If you want to go give me money, you're more than welcome to. I won't complain. I have had about 7 people so far who are like, Peter, we really like what you do, and so we want to give you money. And I think that's great. I haven't spent any of it. It's been building up. It's kind of that whole savings thing. And I do have an idea eventually, once I have enough money, I'm going to take that money out and spend it on a trip down to LA, because there's a bunch of people down in LA who do educational stuff that I'd love to talk to. So if you want to give me money, do that. I'm in the process of job hunting. Hopefully I'm going to have a job shortly where that will help me rebuild my savings, because it's mostly spent, and then I'll have more time to do stuff like that. But yeah, I pay for just about everything out of pocket. That includes a subscription to Adobe Creative Suite, this camera that I'm using to film, the tripod that the camera's on. My computer is a pre-existing medical condition. I had it before I started this, so that doesn't really count. But yeah, so myself and others. That's how it's funded. Meryl Harbs, from my first video on this channel, she asks something. Did I miss something, or is there no correlation yet between the channel name and this project? That's a fun story. So, when I first started the channel, I did it because Hank did this video on Vlogbrothers about how to buy a domain. And I was like, yeah, sweet, so I bought a domain. Back when I had expendable income and had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And then I realized, well, I have this domain and I want to do something with it. And so, I went for a while without really thinking, and then I thought, I should get the YouTube channel too. The YouTube channel's name derives from the domain's name, and the domain's name derives from an idea that I had where I wanted to start this weird social movement and be like, hey, let's do stuff! Because I was going kind of through, not really super depression, but I was kind of bummed about a lot of stuff, and I figured the best way to fix that is be active and go do stuff. And Go Verb Noun just lends a certain degree of flexibility, because you can go do whatever the hell you want. And I like that. I think that's a really cool thing. I guess right now the correlation is go learn a thing. And if you go onto the YouTube channel, the banner, I think it says go learn a thing. But yeah, it's still, the idea is Go Verb Noun. Like, you can do whatever you want, but do something. Maura Brennan. Okay, so Maura Brennan asked a bunch of questions, and they're all really good. So Maura, you're going to get a lot of coverage in this video. Congratulations. And thank you for asking awesome questions. So Maura asks, so now that it's been a few months and you've returned from your trip and had time to sort of ruminate on the interviews you've done, do you have a clearer idea of how you want to proceed, or what sort of things you can do to continue to facilitate YouTube education / ideas about grad school? Alright, this is a great question. Originally, I was thinking that I wanted to get a master's degree in data science because, first of all, it pays the bills, and money, it makes things easier. It makes things possible. But I've recently kind of decided that I don't really have a strong enough background in programming to do data science. So I've kind of readjusted my thoughts, and now I'm aiming more at a master's in library information science. And this stems from the idea that libraries are in a lot of different places, and they are often underutilized, and they have different sources of funding than public school systems. And I think that's great. And so right now what I'm thinking of is getting my master's in library information science, becoming a librarian, but mainly a librarian who focuses on digital resources and community outreach, because I think that community outreach is going to be the biggest thing in getting folks access to YouTube videos. So, there you go. Marley Frost asks, now that I've interviewed a number of amazing people, during this process, what have you learned about yourself? Excellent question, Marley Frost. What have I learned about myself? I've learned that I get bored of editing videos. It's just, like, I like going and interviewing people, and I like traveling, but sitting down and editing is cool for, like, the first hour, but, so here's a fun thing. When I interview somebody, I usually end up with anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half to 2 hours of footage. And when I edit, I go through all of that multiple times. And that's tiring, and that gets boring real quick. So, yeah, there's that. There's also the idea that sometimes I'm not so great at multitasking. Usually I am, but sometimes no. I've also learned that I do not like using scripts. I love writing, which is weird, but I don't like using scripts. Like, I don't like scripting something and then presenting it as if I was not reading from a script. This thing that you and I are doing right now, this is much more authentic to me, and I like that. So, I learned that. Maura asked me a question from Emily's interview. I'm curious, as she was talking about how she wished there was a burgeoning curiosity correspondent market, whether she thinks that individuals such as her, in this sort of revolutionary position of advocating for institutions and introducing behind the scenes in these places to the public, are the future of education marketing outreach for museums or other similar institutions. That's a great question. And so I figured I'd ask Emily. Let me just bring that up real quick. Okay, so here's Emily's answer. She says that, to some extent, I do believe curiosity correspondents are a future of education, marketing, and outreach, but certainly not the only future, and they certainly cannot function independently. My job is way more than just acting as mouthpiece for an institution. I'm interwoven with our scientists, collaborate with the public relations and programs departments, and, as our marketing department expands, will inevitably be collaborating with those individuals on a regular basis. There has never been a formula for how these departments are structured, since museums as they exist in our modern times are relatively new themselves. That's just to say that we ought to be receptive to change, innovation, novelty, and experimentation. We're constantly changing and adapting to the needs of our varied audiences, and as a result, the opportunities for people like me are expanding as well. Couldn't have said it better myself, so I didn't. Okay guys, so I'm going to wrap up now and pause here. The second part is going to be right here on this awesome wine bottle. I realized after starting editing that this is about 24 minutes worth of questions and answers, so broke it up into 2 parts. Second part, click here for. Okay, ready? And go.